Hi, welcome to the Voices of the South. In this podcast, we give the microphone to the social innovators in the Global South so they can share their stories and how they change the world. Thanks for being here, and we hope you like the episode. One of the most populated countries in the world has a problem with its judicial system. The judicial system in Nigeria is a system that seems to be focusing more on creating numbers than on actually delivering justice. I say this because multiple NGOs alongside news organizations have signaled the system flaws, and with even some of them comparing the Nigerian judicial system to a shop where only the rich can go to buy. The reason why people in Nigeria are comparing the judicial system with an exclusive store is because it just happens that unless you're a rich person, accessing justice can be seriously complicated and unfair. An example of how unfair and unbalanced the judicial system in Nigeria can be is the story of Aisha View. Aisha View happened to be a child bride from a vulnerable background who, after a conflict with the other bride of her husband, suddenly was accused of the murder of a child. One would think that because two minors were involved in the case, the system would take its time and make a proper investigation to make sure that everyone involved was clear or, in its case, condemned in the most fair way possible. However, in this case, the police decided that it would be easier to just make Miss View an adult and straight up get her to face the consequences of a crime that she did not commit. As you can see, then, Nigeria has a problem with its judicial system. Thankfully, Ms. View's story, along with many others, does not end there. Thanks to the efforts of our guest today, Ms. View has been able to change her fate and has a second chance in a system that condemned her just because she committed the crime of being born in a vulnerable situation. Today, we welcome Nurudeen Hassan from Hope Behind Bars in Africa. Nurudeen and the team of Hope Behind Bars in Africa have been active for a relatively short time, only 4 years. However, thanks to the work, they have helped a little bit more than 5,000 people in Nigeria. And, well, they have been able to change their fate in the judicial system or are in the process of changing it. As such, without anything else to say, welcome, Hassan, to the Voices of the South. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you, Carlos. I really appreciate it.
Well, why don't we start talking a little bit about what you guys do? What is the idea? What is the organization? I have the understanding that you're working that you work to make justice accessible to vulnerable people in Nigeria. I had the chance to talk or to work for a justice promoting program back in Mexico, and for what a little I read, Nigeria had a very similar system to what Mexico had in previously, but also now because the government in Mexico is changing the rules. But let me know how you guys started. What was the idea? Yeah, talk a little bit about the team and the organization.
Yeah. So again, thank you very much, Carlos, for having me. My name is Nurudeen Hassan. I work as the programs manager for Hope Behind Bars Africa. So the idea of Hope Behind Bars Africa started with the founder. Her name is Funke Adeoye. In 1999, her father was accused of some issues at work, and that would make the dad lose his job. And that inspired her to actually study law. And afterwards, when she was done with law, she started representing people, people who are indigent in Nigeria. And over the past 6 years, we've represented over 7,000 people, trying to get them out of law. Get them out of conflict with the law. The Nigerian situation is very, very unique in the sense that the Nigerian law provides for a lawyer for you if you are too poor to afford a lawyer. However, most state lawyers are overwhelmed with a lot of work, and because of the way the justice system is also structured in Nigeria, there are a lot of stakeholders who have structural issues. So you have to navigate them one by one to be able to provide your clients with proper justice, which is why it seems like it's only the rich that gets away with a lot of things, because again, they can buy their way out of it. But as a poor person, there are a lot of things that you may not be able to buy your way out of. So majorly at More Behind Bars, what we do is access to justice, where we provide people with, provide people with legal representation, making sure that, if you do not have a lawyer, we provide you with lawyers and everything like that. And then we also work around judicial reforms or prison reforms, because again, we understand how important prisons are for society and how people within the prison system. In Nigeria, we don't call it prison system, we call it correctional system, because we had the Nigerian Correctional Act of 2018-2019. So we also work with the Nigerian Correctional Service, where we try to make sure that inmates are given the dignity of life as much as possible. Recently, we launched a skills acquisition hub in 2 prisons in the FCT here in Nigeria, trying to make sure that, okay, you're already in prison. How do we reduce recidivism in Nigeria? By letting them acquire skills. From our research, people who go to prisons, aka correctional facilities, when they come out and they do not have anything to do, they would prefer to go back into prison. So, the case of recidivism is then high. So we are trying as much as possible that while they are there, they acquire skills. Recently, too, we raised about 2.5 million naira to pay for the secondary school leaving certificate exams. We call it WAEC and NECO. WAEC is West African Examination Council. While NECO is the National Examination Council. There are 2 secondary school leaving examinations. So we paid for about 65 inmates in Abuja. We are hoping to expand across the country for the next session. Also, we are working with several stakeholders to teach people how do they learn tailoring, shoemaking, bag making, and a lot of things while in prison. And also then there is also the part where when they come out, how do we then rehabilitate, reintegrate them into society? So it's a whole lot of things that we do. But then again, it started off from people do not have access to lawyers, or when they do have access to lawyers, the lawyers are overwhelmed, so they can't even do proper jobs for them. How do we solve that? And then we began to see that there is a whole lot of work to do within the system. So we have now looked at it in a holistic system where from beginning to the end, so as much as possible, we try not to let you get into the prison system. But if you're already in the prison system, how do we rehabilitate you? How do we reform you and reintegrate you? And by the time you are coming out, so how then do we make sure that you are how do we make sure that you are useful to yourself and useful to society, and then also reduce the number of people in prisons? Because again, it's not just about the people, it's also about the prison system. Nigeria has about 256 prisons, and I can tell you for a fact about 90% of them are overcrowded. Whenever we go, on our prison runs and everything like that, they are very, very crowded. So as much as possible, we try to take part in the congestion work. So also to then work with the Nigerian Correctional Service, the Nigerian Ministry of Interior, and other stakeholders to make sure that prison is much more reformatory and correctional, as the name states, in Nigeria. So yes, that is majority of what we do at this point in time. Yeah, thank you.
You said easy, but you guys are doing a lot. You are accompanying people from the moment that they start having a conflict with the law until they come out of society to society again, out of the correctional system, and they go back into society, and then it becomes for my previous experience working in Mexico, I know that it can be extremely hard. That once you get into a correctional or a jail, and then you go out, it becomes extremely hard for people to reintegrate society. So you're not doing nothing. It's a lot of work that you guys are doing, and you're reaching out to almost 6,000 people already, more or less.
More than 7,000, actually.
More than 7,000 people already in 4 years. So you're almost at the 2,000 people per year.
Yeah,
that's crazy. That's amazing. That's very cool.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you for being here, and thank you for taking the time for the interview.
I was going to say, the situation in Nigeria is crazy, because again, we have a lot of stigmatization of inmates, and majority of the time from our own research, they are mostly not guilty, or because again, Nigeria has about, as of last count, about 77,000 plus, give or take, inmates. But then again, they are divided into two. They are the ones that are awaiting trials, and then they are the ones that have been convicted. The awaiting trials are about 69%. So, because of the weak judicial system, because of the weak court processes and everything like that, people can be in prison for as long as 15 years. They've not even like faced the judge, or a judge has not convicted them and everything like that. So that is a very, very big problem in Nigeria. And it's one of the key problems that we're also trying to tackle. And also, in the process of also tackling it, there are some times that we also then need to work with the public. For example, Nigeria is a flawed democracy. We got back into democracy some 25 years ago, and protest can still be a big thing for Nigerians, for the Nigerian government and everything like that. Also, when people want to go and protest, we don't say whether you can protest or not. We believe that everybody has the right for freedom of peaceful assembly. However, if you've been accosted by the police, or you've come in conflict with the law because you are trying to speak your mind about issues that affect you and your family and the community, we also try to provide representation. The last major protest that we had in Nigeria, the End Bad Governance protest, from August 1 to August 10th, we also we created a toll-free line for people to be able to call whenever they've been arrested, and then would send a lawyer to represent them to get them out of prison. We're able to get about 50 people out almost immediately, or make sure that they got bail and everything like that. Currently, we are trying to make a tour around the country, and then go around the correctional facilities to make sure that those who were arrested within that time frame, as much as possible, they are released from there. Because again, one thing we believe in is that people have the right to speak up. And if they are being arrested in a protest, then the probability of coming out for the next one is going to be low. So as much as possible, we want people to speak up to their voices and everything like that. So again, like I said, work for us at Behind Bars Africa is majorly around how do we make sure that people know their rights? How do we make sure that they do not get into prison? And if they are in prison, how do we make sure they are reformed? And when they are out, how do we make sure they are integrated into society? So we work with a lot of people, including the general public, to make sure that some of these people, because again, there's a way we've been socialized to think about people who have gone to prison as bad people, whereas they are not necessarily bad. They just some made mistakes and everything like that. So we also try to work with the public to say, yeah, they are not bad people. They should be integrated into society, because of course, if they are not reintegrated, they become a menace to society, and we do have to send them back to prison. And again, that is going to also be a problem for society in general. Yeah.
No, absolutely. What you say is right, especially on the kind of system that you're talking. Again, it reminds me a lot of what was Mexican judicial system, where you could end up in jail a decade and never ever really face a judge or have a sentence. You were just in jail, and many of those persons that ended up in jail or in the correctional were there not because they were committing a crime. They were there because they were the right kind of looking, like physical looking person for the police to take them and keep them there so they could fulfill the quota that they had. At least that was what was happening in Mexico.
I mean,
and I imagine it's similar.
Very, very similar. So I don't know if you heard about the NSAS protest of 2020.
Really.
What really started, and that was bigger than the one that we had recently. I mean, the entire nation was grounded to a halt for about 20 days. It ended up in a massacre in Lagos. But what really started that was, a rogue unit within the Nigerian police force started profiling young people, because again, I mean, young people had access to the internet. We understood the world of internet, so young people could then go online, get remote work. You could do a lot of work that made you um, made you a bit, a bit sophisticated than the average person. And then the Nigerian police started profiling them. So you could carry, for example, I'm not sure you can see my hairstyle. It's a bit, it's not flamboyant, but then you could carry a MacBook or you are using an iPhone and you are arrested for it just because you look very, very young, you're in your 20s and you drive a car, could be arrested for that. I mean, and people died. And so it got to a point that, young people couldn't take it anymore. And so they had to protest in 2020 then. I mean, a lot of people came out in their thousands and it was really making the waves. I mean, there were a lot of factors to it, but the main factor to it was that, people were just tired of being profiled and everything like that. And even till now, it's still a big problem. Like 2 months or 3 months ago, I was coming from a prison visit with some of the lawyers within the organization. And we came across a police van and then they were picking up people just because they had dreadlocks. No other thing. No other thing. Just because, oh, okay, you look somehow. So again, as a young person in Nigeria, if there is a crime or there's a crime in an area and you look, I mean, everybody knows that look. You need to leave that area as soon as possible, or else you'll be picked up and everything like that. And if you are not lucky enough to have credible representation, that could be the beginning of a very long time prison. Yes, I mean, you could spend as much as a decade. We have a guy. His name is Christian. I don't know if you saw it on that stuff. John Christian. He was also arrested. He was on his way from school, and then he spent 5 years in prison. We only had to represent it. I mean, he was even represented by the founder of the organization once, and then he was released because again, his lawyers from the state are usually overwhelmed and everything like that. And again, there is a lot of issue around the stakeholders when it comes to the justice system in Nigeria. The Nigerian courts is too slow. The process is too cumbersome. The Nigerian police, for lack of better words, still very, very corrupt an organization. The Ministry of Justice, there is a lot of politics. There are so many things that you want to look at. However, I think, they are also trying to make things better. But for now, the process is still slow for people to even get any sort of justice. And you know what they say, justice delayed is almost as, as justice denied. People have been in jail for almost 10 years, for doing nothing. And then, you just have to represent them once or twice. And then you see that they are out already, yeah.
No, absolutely. This conversation is bringing me a lot of memories from my time working around the judicial system in Mexico. But I wanted to ask you then, because you start with what is already a very hot topic. Like you go out into society to tell, hey, the people that you think that are bad, the people that you think that are in jail because they did some bad stuff, many of them are there because they just happen to look the way they look.
Yeah.
And I've been in that conversation with people from the society that they don't have any specialized education on the judicial system, and their answers or they immediately have a sort of like they don't want that truth that they created to change. A lot of the time, it's hard to start thinking deep.
Yeah.
How was your experience when you started the organization? Well, not only you, but with the founder and with the team around you. How was that experience when the organization started? Like, did you guys felt that it was not necessarily easy, but people were open to a change, or people immediately was like, no, this is bad, and people that are in jail because they are bad? What
Yeah,
was the experience there?
yeah, I mean, I would discuss my own personal experience. Like I said, I also joined the organization along the line. So I used to work in another organization where I work around governance and accountability for young people. And I had known a lot of people. And so when I told them that I now work for an organization that works around prison reforms, human rights violation and everything, people go like, Hassan, why are you working with prisoners? Like, even the people that are free, they've not gotten enough people to, speak up for them. Why are you working with prisoners? They're already bad. They are bad people already. And, I then have to sit them down and then educate them that, many of these people, number one, do not, many of them are just victim of circumstances. Number two, many of them too are also victim of societal decay. Number three, they are victims of government inability to govern society properly. For example, I mean, again, the first one, you could just be on your way just because, you know, you are sporting a dye there, your hair is brown in color. I mean, or you're wearing a earring as a guy, or you plait your hair as a guy. I mean, and then you are going on your own way. You are arrested. That is, you know, a victim of circumstance. And then, you know, police don't do their investigation properly, and then so you end up being there. And again, we don't also have that structure that, you know, that allows, even when somebody is missing, you can easily find them in a police station. So, for example, let's take for example, you've traveled to another state within the country and you've been arrested there, and nobody knows that you are in that state. So you could go missing for 10 years because again, they are looking for you in the states where you are a resident. So you can see the problem. And so when you even, and you know, the way the police work, they can't even say, oh, okay, you know what, let's go through our system and see. There's no centralized system to even say, okay, let's look at all those kind of things. So it is a problem. Then victim of societal decay, because again, we have socialize our mind to think about certain people within prisons to, you know, be this kind of people. So even if you have done something very, very tiny and then you've gone to the correctional facility and then you are back out, people ostracize you. And so most times people do not have choice than, you know, to return back to the life of crime and then go back to prison. And so we create that cycle. And then the third one is around, you know, is around issues of, you know, government failure, government's inability to provide, you know, social welfare, education for people, and everything like that. I was reading a research recently, even around Nigeria. You know, the researchers used a couple of correctional facilities in Nigeria, and then they show that the more educated people are, the less they are likely to commit crime. However, Nigeria is home to one of the highest population of children not going to school in Nigeria, in the world. We have about 20 million people, 20 million young children who are not going to school at all. And so you can also then think about what it means in the nearest future if somebody who is not educated is more likely to go to prison than somebody who is educated. You can see that when those young kids, 20 million of them, in the next 15, 17, 20 years grow older, you see that we have a lot of issues to then deal with because government today has failed to then, you know, to do the right thing by them, you know, by providing education for them, social welfare for their parents, and a host of things. You know, the country is riddled with corruption and everything like that. So when you try to educate people on those things like that, at the beginning, it's very, very difficult because again, there's that mindset that you are representing. And again, you should understand that Nigeria has a whole lot of problems. No matter which niche you choose to do. For example, I have a friend who walks around just teaching children how to play chess, and it has saved a lot of children from, you know, from a bad life. I have people who, you know, what they do in my previous work. What I do is work with young people around civic education and how to engage the government. There are a lot of things that you can't do in Nigeria because Nigeria is filled with pockets of problem. And so when you now choose that you want to work with prisoners, it's a very, very difficult thing for people to look at, you know, again, because they're like, why are you doing that? You know, it's very, very difficult. So you have to then explain it one by one. And, you know, sometimes, I don't know how it is in Mexico, but sometimes people then understand when their family members or their friends get in conflict with the law. You then realize that, oh, they could be innocent. Maybe your friend was arrested by the police, and then you have to call that your friend that works in a human rights organization that, hello, my friend has been arrested. This is. And then, like, are you sure he did not do it? Then they can say, I vouch for that, my friend. And then you tell them that you do realize that there are a lot of people in prison that, you know, their friends can also vouch for them too. So, I mean, there's a lot of work around it. But I would also tell you that for a fact, Nigerians are very, very loving people. Because again of our religious orientation and the kind of people that we are, Nigerians also pay a lot of attention to people in prisons. At every given festivities, be it Christmas, be it New Year, be it the Easter, be it Eid al-Kabir, during Ramadan, they they contribute, to prisons and everything like that. But from a structured point of view, where you then create that structure that then affects society as a whole, we've not been able to do that. We do it more from an individual point of view. I could donate a bag of rice to a prison here to my community and everything like that. But then again, getting the government to then work holistically on the criminal system, we've not been able to do that. So that's where the problem lies. And with Hope Behind Bars, we are hoping to solve it. So yeah, thank you.
We hope you liked the episode. We are taking this small space to ask for your help. The Voices of the South survives thanks to the help of the people around the project, and as such, we would like to ask for your help. If you like our work, we will ask you to consider subscribing, giving us a review, sharing the episode, or giving us a comment. Any of these actions help us to reach more people and gather more help. Anyhow, thank you for hearing us, and let's go back to the interview. Guys, and we'll talk about that later during the interview, but you're working with a huge country population-wise. Obviously, a lot of people are going to have to be involved with the judicial system. And yeah, there is so much. You might be sort of like fixing something in one city, and then the other city goes kaput, and then you need to go and rush everything there. And then what you were working on the previous city, it might diminish or it might disappear. So you guys have been doing an amazing job in 4 or 5 years. It's incredible, the reach and the the reach and the change that you guys have created.
Thank you.
That's sort of a little bit about the beginning of the project, what you guys do. I wanted to ask you a little bit, who is the team with you? Who's the team working around you? Are you a big organization? As far as I could research you, I think that you guys are a little bit more in the middle-sized organization. But please let me know a little bit about the team with you.
So, like I said, the founder, her name is Funke Adeoye. She's a lawyer. She's a lawyer, and she works on criminal cases in Nigeria and everything like that. But she has pivoted into making sure that the organization has enough fundraising for the organization to be able to work very well. My name is Hassan. I work as the programs manager, deputizer in everyday work, trying to make sure that the projects that we work around on a daily basis, they function properly, and then the team works effectively. We also have Grace H.A. Okeke. She's our operations person, make sure that, everybody gets the things they need to work within the organization. We have communications people. We have people in programs, lawyers that work with us. We have researchers that also work with us, and then we have a lot of volunteers. So volunteers would make majority of the team, because again, my specialization is around project management, and so whenever we need people to represent people in courts, in police stations, again, our volunteers take a bulk of that. We also have lead legal consultants who then take on the very much sensitive ones, so as to be able to solve them properly, and then look at them in such a way that it doesn't go against the tenets of the organization. So yes, organizationally, in terms of the organizational structure, we are no more than 12 as at the last count. They're just 12. And so we also have like a small team in Edo State. So we work generally from the FCT, that's the Federal Capital Territory in Abuja. We work from there across the country. But then again, we also have a small team in Edo State that they also do the same work. We have a state lead there. We're also hoping to replicate the same process across the country, where each state has a state lead where we can work. Because again, like you said, Nigeria is a country of 220 million people, and there are so many people that 12 people can serve. But again, because we have volunteers around, so whenever we look at cases, we then say, oh yes, we are going to work on this, we are going to work on that. How do we get somebody there? How do we look at all those things and then make sure it works properly? Yeah.
Well, yeah, you need to be a very well-oiled machine to achieve what you have achieved. So congratulations on that. It's always important to have a good team, and a team that you can trust, and a team that works together to make the change. Now that we have talked a little bit of the what is the organization, the team around it, a bit of how it started, I wanted to ask you if you had to say mm, there's secret recipe for the organization to be as successful as it is, what would you say this is that is the main ingredient? How what is the reason that you think, or the main reason anyway, that you think is yeah, you owe the success to that behavior, to that idea. What has, yeah,
I think the idea, one thing that makes an organization tick is um, if the founder has a dream and pursues it. I can tell you the executive director Funke Adeoye had like a dream and then stuck to it. And so when people join, so and again from my own point of view, I usually tell people that the why is very very. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this is very very is much more important than how are you going to do this. So if I know why you are doing it, it then it will tell me a story of why I need to support you wholeheartedly. The how can change over time, but the why still remains always intact. So if you have a very very good why am I running for this position? Why am I taking this education? Why am I running this organization? I feel over time people who buy into that dream will come along and they will give it their all. And that is what has happened for Behind Bars Africa. People come along, people come, people go, but people come along when they are there, they give it their all because they see a dream that, yes, I I want in Nigeria that justice is not for the rich only, justice is for everybody. I want a Nigeria where if I hear that somebody has been arrested, I would be sure that they are going through the right process, and then if they are innocent, they will get free. Of course, it's still a long way from the mark, but it's also working around it. And also, I think when you are getting a team together, at least from my work over the years, is that you need to also find people who fit into the team. There's a way a team is structured, and when you bring one person in, if the person does not fit into the team, they ruin everything. So you should also as maybe like a founder or maybe like a senior management um, a member, you should also be able to look at people who are within your team and who is not fitting in. It's not like whether they are good or bad people. They just don't fit into that team at that particular moment. And then you should find a way to weed them out because, again, that can then distort the flow of work. I want to tell you something that, this work that is being done very, very, is very, very tasking. And sometimes it takes a little bit of passion, it takes a little bit of sacrifice. If you don't have people who want to do a bit of that, it might not work out. Again, it starts from what the founder has in mind and a little bit of passion to go along with it.
thank you for answering. I would say that then the two main ingredients for the reason of the success of the organization, you think, is the why, the motivation of why you're doing the things you're doing, and that you guys have become quite good at picking a right team for the moment of where you are at the moment. No, like you have become quite good at choosing a good goalkeeper because right now you're going into penalties. And then the reason why,
Yeah.
and then the reason why of motivates people, and I guess the founder has a very, I imagine, I haven't had the pleasure to meet her, but I imagine that she has a very contagious personality and a very inspiring personality that has convinced people to take a challenge as big as it is the justice system in Nigeria.
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much for the answer. Well, we are moving now to what is the middle of the interview. There's this part I really like because here we talk about the highest high, the best time for you, but also the lowest one, or how we call it here, the fucked up. The idea of this part is not to signal you or to make you feel bad or anybody in the organization. Is more towards the idea that if any young social innovator is hearing us, if anybody from Nigeria, if anybody from any part of the global south is hearing us and they are starting, we want them to know that it's okay to have mistakes. It's okay to fuck that up.
Yeah.
But the important part is to learn. So I wanted to ask you, of your memory, of your perception, what is the most successful moment? The moment that you wake up every day and it's like, this is why I am this. Your why, as you were mentioning before, like why is that you keep doing this work? And the second one would be, what is the moment that you would say, well, we could have done better here. At that moment, we didn't knew. At that moment, we weren't prepared, but we could have definitely make it happen in a better way. You're welcome to start either with the good one or with the bad one. Yeah, take the microphone away.
So thank you very much, Carlos. So I think I'll start with the bad ones. Because again, like you said, in the global south, there are a lot of obstacles to when you want to do certain things, and so sometimes also not understanding your stakeholders can be very very difficult. Um, and then you can come in conflict with them, and you should also understand that there are some stakeholders that are very very like powerful. Not that they want to stop you from doing your work, but they feel like maybe you're trying to, I don't know how to put it, they think that you are trying to usurp their authority. And so, they can form a little bit of clog in your wheel. So I think that was one of the lowest of our low. First of all, not understanding, the the entire system. Now, I mean, whenever we visit majority of stakeholders, and by stakeholders, I mean, government organizations, the Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Interior, the Nigerian Correctional Service, Nigerian Police, they know the work that we do, and they are very very delighted to meet us because they've also seen the work that we do. But in the early days, I know Funke will tell me that it was very very difficult to even get an audience with them. It was very very, because again they just look at you like, what are you trying to do and everything like that. So that can be a very big problem. Again, I think for anybody who is willing to start off, um, know who your major stakeholders are, who makes your work tick, who makes your work not to tick. Especially because again, majority of the things that we do in the global south has to have a government component in it. You need a certain ministry, a certain department, a certain agency for your work to move smooth, and for it to gain the accolades that you wanted to gain, and for you to even create the impact that you wanted to create, you need some of those things. For example, I can tell you that some of the skills acquisition hubs that we have in the Nigerian Correctional Service, we needed to work very well with the Nigerian Correctional Service to make sure that those spaces were built, and then the machines for the inmates to learn were installed properly and everything like that. If they had given us a no, I mean, then there's nothing we would have done, because, and again, the prisoners or the inmates would have lost that particular opportunity to be able to learn those set of skills. Also, sometimes, just generally understanding, and again, having a positive mindset is very, very important, because again, it can be very, very frustrating along the line. If you are not careful, you might just, drop off because you think things are not going your way. It would take a while if you're a new person for it to come your way and everything like that. Our highest, however, is this year we got a call, and there was this guy. He had been in the prison for almost 10 months. His case was very very complicated. He was charged for intentional insult and then theft. And by the time we looked at the whole issue, we realized that he had not faced it. He had not faced a judge in like 8 months and everything like that. So the last time he was in court, they asked him to pay a fine of 50,000 naira, which is around it's not up to $50. it's around 47 or $45. And and I was like, so you spent 10 months in prison because you don't have 50,000 naira, or you don't have anybody to pay you 50,000, pay for your 50,000 naira.
Mm.
Anyways, we were able to raise that amount, and then we got him out. And the high I get from it is whenever we do some of this work, people's lives are literally changed. Somebody who has lost all hope that this is where I'm going to live the rest of my life, and then based on your own intervention, they are now free again. There is a look in their eyes, that says everything, even if it's just one person that says everything, that yes, I'm doing the right thing. A couple of weeks ago, some of the lawyers within our organization were also able to get some people out from the correctional facility in Suleja. And there was one person that we had to call his family that, yes, the judge has granted your sibling bail, and that the person doesn't have money to go to that correctional service to get his own sibling out. It's like, once you get there, just release him so that he would find his way home. And so we then had to give him money, that take this money to go back to the place. Like, we did not see the sibling himself because he had to go with a messenger of the court, but we saw him who is free outside, and he was so happy that a sibling can finally get some level of, and you can see it when people thank you for the work that you do. I think that's enough high for anybody. You see people's life literally change. People who maybe 20 minutes before they met you, they do not have any hope. But 2, 3, 4 days or a week after they've met you, they are now free people. They have something to fall back on, or they are safe. They are walking on the streets of Nigeria, free. I mean, when they say thank you, you're like, I mean, it's just, we just represented you. It's more than enough. Like, I don't know, it's more than enough. People's fathers, people's mother, people's kids, and then you just see their family so happy that you've done something for them by just merely representing them. Providing this, providing that. You have done a lot for them. And then they are just so happy. I think beyond the recognition, beyond the accolades that we might get along the line, that is very, very key. When you see people's life literally change in this, like, you can see it. You see them today, and then the next 2 days, I mean, it's not like they've eaten anything substantial, but because they have, what Nigerians call peace of mind, you can see the literal change in them. I think that's a very big high for me. And it kind of feeds into some of the reasons why I still do this work. How do we get more people in that regard, and make sure that their life is changed for the better? Yeah, thank you.
No, no, no. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. What can I say? Absolutely not knowing your stakeholders and not knowing how to interact with them. It's something that you want to correct as soon as you can. It might be difficult, but it's something very important because even if they are not against you, they might not want to help you. And maybe even they would want to interrupt you, or make things a little bit difficult for you. So yeah, it's not only about memory, but it's a good recommendation to get to know the stakeholders that you need to get to know. Uh, that's one. And the second one is the good thing. Yeah, I imagine that it must be very rewarding, perhaps. Maybe that's not the best word, but let's say that it must be very rewarding when you go and you manage to get somebody out of the prison system, or the correctional system, forgive me. Um, and because I imagine that the stress that you must have when you get to be booked with the police, and you're thinking, maybe this is it, like maybe I'm gonna stay here for 10 years, man. uh, Despite not doing anything in a lot of the cases. So I can see why people come to you and tell you thank you. I would definitely do that. I would even buy you the beers after it or the tea or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I thank you very much for sharing. It's a very it's both a very well perhaps sad experience, but also a good recommendation and a very nice high that you guys that you have experienced. So I'm glad to hear that one. Let's move to the start of to the beginning of the end of the interview. And I wanted to ask, what is the future for Hope Behind Bars in Africa? What is coming? Perhaps not at the end of the year because we are very much at the end of the year. But what is coming in 2025 at the beginning, perhaps at the middle of 2025? What's the next goal?
Again, so because we learn from our experiences, we learn from some of the things that we face on the field, and also in terms of research. So one of the key things that we are going to face in 2025 that I'm very, very sure of is how do we then engage majority of the inmates within the correctional service in terms of education. It could be formal, it could be informal, it could be it could be formal and vocational. How do we get them to maybe go to school? Because again, so Nigeria has this National Open University which allows for inmates to go to school for free within the prison system. So we are trying as much as possible to get many inmates to do their secondary school leaving certificate examinations to be able to then get a university degree from prison. Because again, there is a key thing. Across the world, I've read research from Mexico, India, Kenya, and even Nigeria. The more people are educated, the less likely they are going to commit crimes. Because again, education gives you this sort of know-how, and then there's a sort of, I don't know, uh, for lack of better word, ego that comes with it, that I'm educated, I should not be found in this sort of. And I'm not saying educated people don't commit crimes, but when you go to a lot of prisons, you see that majority of people who are there are people who have, the lower their education status, the more they are. So if you see somebody who has not done primary education, you see that there are a whole lot more people who have like a secondary education, less more than the primary education. University, not so much. You're probably for PhD, I assume is high quality crime for for lack of better words that you would find there. If you go around the world, look for people who have MSc and PhDs or MAs in prisons. They are not so as many as as people who have not even seen the four walls of a school. So we want to get a lot of people to be able to get education in prison. So it could be vocational, it could be formal education. Um, Another part is what we call the police duty solicitor scheme. As much as possible, Nigeria still has a lot of laws that that I would consider archaic. You can be arrested for loitering, committing, constituting nuisance, and everything. Things that ordinarily should not get you into jail in the first place. So what we are trying to do is trying to work with a lot of lawyers and trying to make sure that they are placed in. This scheme exists in Nigeria, but we are trying to strengthen it further. They are in police stations, so once the people are coming in, once we know that their offenses are very, very minute, we could then work it out to the police, in terms of representation and everything like that, so they can be released as soon as possible. Because again, that then helps us. The less people enter the criminal justice system, which the opening is through the police, the less they enter, the less stress is on the investigating officer, on the court, on the Nigerian Correctional Service, and generally on the society itself. A small boy who is maybe like a 17 or 18-year-old boy who is caught loitering around, constituting nuisance. If the boy does not go to jail today, we are saving the country and his family a whole lot of cost. And again, we are saving his life too, because again, it then means he has not even entered the criminal justice system itself, and he has chances of doing better things with his life. So by also putting a plug at that entry point to make sure that it's only people that that have committed crimes that are worth going into extensive investigation about. They are the ones that should be remanded in the police station. Also working with the Nigerian police to make sure that people get bail and then released in 24 to 48 hours, which the law stipulates. So again, to also reduce the number of people in police station and subsequently in the correctional um, facility. Also, we are also trying to work around, farms for Nigerian prisons where people within, again, the idea is also like, if more people have skills within the Nigerian prison or Nigerian correctional service, as we call it, they are able to contribute to society when they are finally released. So we are majorly going to work with the Nigerian correctional service, the Nigerian police to make sure, and then again with the the Nigerian lawmakers, that's um, the Nigerian House of Assembly, in making sure that there are a lot of laws that are reformed to make sure that prison is much more correctional in nature, so that we don't create that image in people's mind, or at least as much as possible we begin to reorientate people about people in prisons and everything like that, so that people don't just think them as I mean, people are allowed to do wrong, and if they have paid the consequences for it, they should be allowed into society again. So also that is going to be very, very key in our 2025 year. Thank you.
It seems like a very busy future, a very busy 2025. So, congratulations for the ambitions. I hope, well, I kind of know that you guys are going to make it.
Thank you very much for the support.
No, yeah, I have the feeling that you guys are going to make it. So I wouldn't worry that much about it, but it is definitely going to be a very busy and a very occupied 2025. Uh,
Yes.
taking your point on the higher education that you have, the less crimes that you make. Uh, yeah, I guess I guess there is a correlation there. No, the more opportunities you have, the more education you have, the more opportunities you might be able to have to work on, to participate on. So it becomes basically you become way too busier to take part in
Yeah.
crimes in a way. No.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, when you say that people with PhD commit really interesting crimes, yeah, absolutely, I guess. On the other point, on the counterpoint, you can also find that a lot of the perhaps the worst crimes in terms of
Yeah.
yeah, in terms of impact to the society are made by people
Yes.
in yeah
Like people with PhD. Yes. Yes. Of course. I mean, we see what happens with government officials and everything like that. The kind of crimes they commit, and again, it's also one of the things that society should also take notice of. I think the impact of the crime should contribute to the kind of sentence, the kind of rehabilitation and information we want to give people, as against the class of people that have committed the crimes. Nigerian politicians are very, very notorious for pillaging the country, whereas and then they go with a slap on the wrist. Whereas somebody who goes to the market, because they are hungry and then they steal a cup of rice or whatever it is, they get to spend more than 10, 15 years in prison and everything like that. I think it's a long pipe dream, but yes, it's a place I personally would want us to reach as a society. The impact of your crime towards society should also determine the length of your sentence, and and the severity of your sentence as against the class of the class of society you fall into. Because again, I mean, if you are going to steal $50 billion from the state coffers, why should I, ask you to pay a fine of $2 million when I can, I don't know, have
no,
you never society again?
I agree with you. I think the intention behind the crime. I don't want to crime. I don't want to call it crime. At least not, for example, in the case of people that stole a piece of bread because they were hungry. Because it's not necessarily something. It's not an action that came from the idea or from the feeling of I want to harm the person I'm stealing the bread from. Is very
Yeah.
much from the idea of perhaps starving, and I don't want to die, which is very human nature. It's very human thing to do to want to survive. Meanwhile, on the other hand, you have these politicians and these mega rich and these people that is like, well, yeah, we kind of know that the exploding oil or selling contaminated food is bad, but
Yeah,
profit. Uh, so that reasoning is very much on the I just want more of something that I already have, which is money
yeah,
or power or something like that.
yeah,
It's a completely different, or at least from my point of view, it's a completely different motivation behind this action that is going to cause harm to somebody. And obviously, the consequences of somebody stealing a bread and the consequences of somebody selling contaminated food, for example, are just, they cannot even compare. Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, again, it sounds like a very interesting future, like a very busy 2025. I know that you guys are gonna make it. Just read and keep going. Um,
Thank you.
we are finally at the end of the interview, and by finally, I say that very sad because it has been a very interesting chat that we have had today.
Mhm.
And I want to ask, what can you recommend to the people, to the social innovators who are just starting? What I don't know if you want to focus on people, on social innovators from Africa, or if you want to make it sort of like general. It's up to you, but I would like to hear your recommendation.
So again, I mean, because I mean, majorly I've been around the continent, so I can speak for the continent. The much I know about outside the continent is mostly from books and movies and music and everything like that. But I mean, for Africans who would like to change the continent, I think again, majority of our work, as much as we do this non-profit work, we should also see our work affect how government also sees society. I always tell people that there's so much work a non-profit can do. A government can do 10,000 times, and that's why uh, that's the main reason developed countries are different from us. Government takes on the challenge, and then the people challenge government to take on the role. For example, the reason a lot of non-profit exists is to also plug into the failures of government. If government does well and everything like that, maybe we would have less of these issues that we then complain about. The reason why and again, at the end of the day, there is a social contract between the people and the government. So, yes, you can know the non-profits, because they hold the funds in public trust. But a government is your government. They are literally there because of you. So I think the way we also hold government is very, very important. Government should be able to do their jobs and everything like that. And you would find out that if government functions properly, society is better off for it. But yeah, for social innovators across the continent, um, maybe I'm not the right person to give the advice, but from my own observation over the years, I think your why is very, very important. For the people that I've worked with in my life, their whys is always like one of the key reasons why I move in to work with them. Why are you doing this thing? Um, they should because again, there's so much you can do. If there is no passion at the beginning of it, you probably will lose steam along the way. But if there's a passion for it, I'm sure by the time it seems like you are losing steam, which it's almost like very, very rare, people would have come along, to make the burden bearable for you. Also, I think at the end of the day, the reason why you do what you do is to make people's lives better. Um, and as much as possible, when you focus on that, like how do people that I work with or how the beneficiaries of this project that I'm working on, how can their life get better? I'm sure you would get um, I'm sure you'd get a lot of, I don't know, I'm sure you get a lot of from it. But last but not the least, I'm rounding up now. There's this movie, Three Idiots. It's an Indian movie. the main characters there says you should chase excellence, and every other good thing in life chases you. If you chase excellence in what you are doing, I'm sure every other good things in life will chase you. And it's not just a philosophical thought. We see it every day. Every day we see people, who are excellent at what they do, and how the rest of the world follows them, chases them around. And it's not different in also in the social innovator space. And I wish everybody the very best. Thank you, Carlos.
No, thank you. Thank you for the advices. It not entirely agree with the idea that you are not a good person to give an advice, because at the end of the day, well, I would say that all of the social innovators that come to the program, they are giving the advice with the best intentions and the intention of they want you to succeed, which
Yeah.
is not necessarily. Yeah, I mean, you also need to be quote unquote smart enough to know when an advice is going to be good for you and when an
Yeah.
advice it might not necessarily be good for the conditions where you are. But
Yeah.
regardless of that, thank you very much for sharing. And then we can move to the last three questions. What would you? I imagine that you guys have donors. I imagine that you guys have organizations that are helping you, or I'm just imagining it.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. So for now we work with Civicus. Is a very big donor for us. We work around freedom of peaceful assembly with them. Again, trying to get people to understand the the rationale for their freedom of peaceful assembly and their right not to be trampled upon. Global citizens too. Last year, Funke Adeoye for OBI Bars Africa won $75,000 for the work that we do at OBI Bars Africa, which has come in very, very handy for us. Unleash is an organization that also gives social innovators money to then push forward uh, for the work that they do. They are also a very big friend of the house, and we work with the the penal reform organization. So because again, we're also working around the eradication of the death penalty or the capital punishment in Nigeria. So they also very, very much support us. So those are the donors that we work with around for now. We are hoping to increase our reach so as to be able to also increase the number of people that we reach with the projects that we do. But for now, those are the people that we work with here.
Well, what I wanted to ask is, do you have anything that you would like to say to the donors? Some people have asked the donors, not necessarily your donors, but like people, organizations that function as donors. Some people have asked before, hey, thank you for the help, but maybe perhaps try to reconsider a little bit the times that you have in Geneva or you have in New York and the times that we have in Nigeria or that we have in Mexico. Uh, so yeah, if you have any recommendation that you would like to say to the donors, obviously apart from saying thanks for the help, by all means.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's a saying in my language that if you are grateful for the small one, you get more. So first of all, thanks to all the donors. I mean, not just our own donors, but it's donors around the world supporting non-profit and social innovators. For me, one problem I usually have with donors is also that there is a Western view of how third world country or the global south should look like in their mindset, and so it also affects the way they then give out grants and sub grants to people. Or Nigerian problems, yes, there are a lot of factors, but they are Nigeria's problem. And the solution will also come from Nigeria. We could borrow ideas from different parts of the world, but it is Nigeria's solution. We would, because again, you can't take a problem from Mexico. You can't take a solution from Mexico and apply it to Nigeria and get the same exact results. Environment differs and everything like that. And so, taking solutions and then, trying to impose it on other countries can be a problem. I would also, so they should also try to make sure that, they work with the people on ground in that country in terms of developing the solution, not come up with a solution and then try to force it down our throat and say, this is how you should do this stuff. Sometimes it feels a bit like you don't even know much about the society that you are dealing with. It's quite different from where you are coming from. So that can be a problem. Also, I think we need to start also looking at projects in a long-term basis as against, a year, 6 months project. You would agree with me that sometimes 6 months is just 6 months, a year is just for you to understand how your stakeholders move or react to things. So when you want to work with, you want to work with government and everything like that. You are using the entire 6 months, 1 year to even get them to a meeting table to even discuss the basic idea, not for them to agree. You just want them to, and then by then, the project is over, and then you're like, okay, so what's the next step? So it means you then have to start all over again because the funding for that has ended and everything. Maybe donors also want to look at long-term projects, at implementing partners level. When you look at it that way, it goes a long way because there's continuity. The people that you started working with, you don't need to go back to them again and everything like that. It makes the work smoother and everything like that. And the last but not the least would then be, flexibility around project deliverables. Things when you deal with issues that have a little bit of political dimension in it, things can change a lot. Anybody working on the project between 2023 and 2024, especially in the 2023 year, knows that it's going to be troublesome because a lot of the strides that you've made. It's an election year for Nigeria, and so government is literally changing. So maybe you've gotten to a point with a certain department within a certain ministry to get some reforms done, and then before the permanent secretary before the director general could sign, he has been replaced, and so the new person comes in and says he knows nothing about it or she knows nothing about it. So you have to start all over again, and then when you tell your donors, they're like, what are you trying to say and everything like that. There should also be flexibility around some of those things in also understanding. Maybe at the beginning of the project, our assumptions should be put before everyone so that we can know what we are dealing with and how we are dealing with it. And yeah, I think that's it from my own end. Thank you.
No, thanks. Thank you. I definitely agree with you. We tend to, or the donors, because they live in their own context and they live in their own sort of history, it's hard sometimes, I believe, for them to accommodate the needs of the project and accommodate the solutions that you're coming into, that you're creating in the place where you started the project. And sometimes because they, and I believe that they do it from the from a good place, they told you or they ask you to follow certain regulations that work in their context, that work in where they are, but they don't often or they don't regularly work as well in a whole different context, which is
yeah
outside of the place where they started. So thank you for sharing that. Finally, or well, the last question is, how can people reach out if they want to help, if they want to donate money, or they want to volunteer, or they want to chat with you? Where can they find you?
You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on basically all social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, formerly known as Twitter X, formerly known as Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. I know on X we are up behind bar. On Instagram we are up behind bars. On LinkedIn we are up behind bars Africa. Majority of our pages, you could see them on our website, opbehindbarsafrica.org. If you need to do anything, you could send us a mail at partnership@opbehindbarsafrica.org. You could send me a personal email, hassan@opbehindbarsafrica.org, or you could send my boss an email, funke@opbehindbarsafrica.org. You could also send an official email to hello@opbehindbarsafrica.org or let's talk@opbehindbarsafrica.org. But whatever it is that you need, if you go to our website, you would find all that details. To contribute, there's also a donation. There's also a donation button on our website. We have a GoFundMe account. for us to be able to represent people in courts and everything like that. So it's all on our website. And, if you need any more information, all our email details, they are also on the website that you can reach out to any one of us. And we will be seeing how, first of all, we can help. And number two, how we can collaborate. And number three, how we can move forward together. Thank you.
No, thank you. And finally, it's an open space. If you want to if you want to share something that we did that you think we didn't touch during the interview, or you want to, if you want to double down on something, please let us know.
No, I mean, again, for me, I mean, for people, if you're in the global south, I mean, generally around the world, um, prison issues or correctional service issues, they are societal issues. Um, we don't have to shy away from them if we want to solve it. We can't act like they are like stains or gems on us if we want to solve it. Because again, I know for a fact everybody that lives or everybody that is listening or that will listen to this want a society that is probably prison free or to the barest minimum. And the first way of doing it is to accept that, people would commit crimes. And then how do we stop them from committing crimes? How do we create a society that, that stops people from committing crime? How do we put consequences in place, that, that, stops people from committing crime? How do we also put social welfare in place that makes sure people don't think about committing crime? All those general things, from the onset, from the day a child is born till he or she dies. How do we make sure that, crime is one of the last things they resort to in their lifespan and everything like that? But one of the first key issues we need to accept is that prison are a part of our modern day life, and we need to tackle it as a whole. We can't shy away from it, and we should not also exacerbate the problem by stigmatizing against people who have gone to prison. I mean, yes, I do understand there's context to it. There are certain people that you need to stay away from because of, but on a general note, I believe, or I would like to believe, that everybody has a sense of context within each person they deal with. But on a general note, we we need to also reduce to the barest minimum the stigmatization of formerly incarcerated persons and everything like that. And maybe one day we'll be able to build a better world where they barely exist. I know they would forever exist, but where they barely exist or they are their barest minimum. Thank you.
No, and thank you for coming to the interview, Hassan. Thank you for sharing all these thoughts. I agree with you. Stigmatization of people that has had a conflict with the law and how we ostracize them from society should end. And as you say, it's probably never going to end, but it should definitely be reduced as much as we can. Well, Hassan, it was a pleasure having you here in the Voices of the South. That's all for today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for hearing us. This is everything for today, and we hope to see you on the next episode of the Voices of the South.